We begin tonight in Markham, where a 9-year-old boy is fighting for his life in hospital after being pulled from a house fire. The Office of the Ontario Fire Marshal now investigating. Good evening. Officials say the boy was trapped inside the home after the fire spread from the garage to the house. He was rescued by fire crews, but remains in critical condition. CTV's Janice Golding joins us live from the scene near 16th Avenue and 9th Line with the latest. Janice.
Hi, Natalie. Yes, a 9-year-old boy is in critical condition in hospital right now after he was trapped inside a burning home here in the 16th Avenue and 9th Line area of Markham over the noon hour. Flames can be seen coming from a Markham garage. A few feet away, a woman collapses to her knees, paralyzed with fear because her son is still trapped inside the home.
I was out taking our Christmas lights off, walking in between the houses, and I could smell like a smoke. And then I went back to the backyard, and 3 minutes later, I came back to the front. The whole garage was on fire.
Next-door neighbor Don Baglieri says it was noon when he first smelled smoke, and when he realized his neighbors weren't outside,
I thought, maybe I better go in. And I opened up the front door, and the smoke was just terrible, and I tried to go in a little bit further, but I couldn't breathe.
Markham Fire says when they arrived at the two-alarm blaze, they were made aware a 9-year-old boy was trapped inside.
It was a very complex fire for us. We had all crews working diligently, and we were able, unfortunately, the fire got to the front door, so we were unable to get in, but crews did get by the fire and were able to get the boy out as quickly as we possibly could.
Neighbors say it felt like it took an eternity for crews to reach the boy while they waited outside helplessly.
Within 3 minutes of my husband calling, they were here. And they were working on the house, and they were trying to get upstairs to get to the little boy.
They had to put a big ladder up to the front window where he was sleeping, and they had to break it in, and then they went in and brought him out. And they just put him on the driveway.
The Baglieri say watching the boy's family members, who were originally outside without shoes, hats, or coats, was heartbreaking.
They were hysterical. They were beside themselves. It was overwhelming. It was really sad.
At this time, police say they do not consider this a suspicious fire. The Ontario Fire Marshal's office is now investigating what caused the blaze. And a spokesperson for the Ontario Fire Marshal's office just spoke to the media a few minutes ago, and here's what he had to say.
We are at the initial stages of the investigation, and we will be looking at the origin, circumstances, and the cause around this incident. At this point, we do not have a lot of information to share, as our investigators just arrived not too long ago, and we will be conducting our investigation. We will be returning tomorrow to conduct our investigation, as it is dark, and our investigators do need light to conduct our investigation at this point.
Now, the child was rushed to hospital in life-threatening critical condition, which is where he remains. At this point, it is unknown if anyone else sustained any injuries. Reporting live from Janice Golding, now back to Natalie.
Okay, thank you, Janice. A dog has been killed and a man is in hospital with serious injuries after being struck by a vehicle near the exhibition grounds this afternoon. This was the scene near the Lakeshore and Remembrance Drive shortly after 2 p.m. Police say a male pedestrian and a dog were struck. The dog died from its injuries. The pedestrian was rushed to hospital in serious condition, but he is expected to survive. The driver of the vehicle remained at the scene. There has been no word on any possible charges as the investigation continues. There is a large police presence in Oshawa this hour as officers respond to an unspecified incident. Heavily armed Durham Regional Police officers were seen outside an apartment building near Wentworth Street West and Oxford Street. At this point, Durham police are only saying it is an ongoing investigation and that it is an isolated incident. Investigators are looking for witnesses after a carjacking overnight in Vaughan that they say started with a staged collision. It happened around 12:40 a.m. near Hilda Avenue and Pinewood Drive in the area of Yonge and Steeles. York Regional Police say the victim was driving an Acura MDX that was rear-ended by a dark-colored SUV. It's reported that when the victim got out to exchange details with the driver, another suspect entered her vehicle and drove off.
Anytime you're getting out of the car, we do recommend turning the vehicle off, taking the keys with you. Even locking the doors can prevent it. We've seen distraction thefts in the past with similar nature where you're just engaged in conversation with someone and you don't notice that someone else is entering your vehicle. And that appears to be an initial case. Again, just having a conversation, thinking everything's fine when another suspect's getting in a car, and the next thing you know, they're taking off.
The woman's phone was also taken, and that delayed her ability to call for help. Anyone with information is asked to contact the York Regional Police Hold-Up Squad. A healthcare watchdog has called for changes at a Toronto hospital after an 84-year-old woman was bruised and put in a headlock by a security guard. CTV's John Woodward joins us live now from outside Michael Garron Hospital. And John, some of these changes have to do with militaristic language.
Yeah, Natalie, Ontario's patient ombudsman took a look at the policies of Michael Garron Hospital and found militaristic language like tour of duty in there about how they're deployed. They say it signifies a culture, or could signify a culture, that's just inconsistent with the hospital's mission of helping people.
It was a shock.
That's how Michael Turcotte reacted when he heard about what happened during his mother's visit to Michael Garron Hospital in 2024. June Turcotte, who is deaf and has dementia, had gone in for a blood sugar test. Hours later, the 84-year-old emerged covered in bruises. The family said one staffer told them a security guard had put her in a headlock.
An 84-year-old lady in a bed isn't a threat to anybody, and if the only resource they have is putting her in a headlock and causing those kind of injuries, then the system really needs to be looked at and changed.
Our news story of the incident then sparked Ontario's patient ombudsman to look into what happened, combining their probe of another similar incident in the East End Toronto Hospital. Their report found security guards there do take de-escalation training, but embedded in their policy is language like tour of duty that they described as hawkish or militaristic, with guards agreeing it implied they worked in a warlike context. The report said this framing of such policies and the organizational culture it implies is not consistent with the goals and principles of a healthcare environment.
Tour of duty like this, it just doesn't belong there.
The Ombudsman's office found use of force rates at the hospital were going up from 1.8 interventions per 1,000 visits in 2023 to 2.1 in 2024.
It's not your granddad's emergency department anymore.
Emergency doctor Alan Drummond said this could be a response to the genuine threats ERs have faced across the country, like a nurse strangled at Vancouver General Hospital and healthcare workers stabbed in Halifax.
Substance abuse is rampant. Dementia is increasing. People are medically ill, and they often sort of become quite delirious and lack of control.
The hospital told the Ombudsman it had created a geriatric emergency department area, increased its physician and triage nurse schedules, assigned another half-time employee to that department, and revised its security policies.
You don't want to go to emergency and get injured.
The Turcottes hope the changes at Michael Garron Hospital will be replicated elsewhere, so no other elderly person leaves hospital looking like this. Another issue in getting to the bottom of what happened to June Turcotte here was that there was no security video of the incident, and one of the patient ombudsman recommendations was to have body-worn cameras on all the security guards, just like some police forces, and the hospital says they have implemented that. Reporting live from Michael Garron Hospital, I'm John Woodward. Natalie, back to you.
All right, thank you, John. Crews are still working to repair a broken water main downtown that left residents and businesses in the area without water for 18 hours. It began yesterday evening around 6 on Front Street between Yonge and Church. The break caused flooding, and as a result, the city had to shut off water in some areas. The taps were turned back on around the noon hour today, but eastbound lanes on Front Street remain closed until further notice. The city says crews are trying to resolve the situation as soon as possible. Well, the new year brings new rules governing in-person work in this province as thousands of public service workers return to the office full-time on Monday. CTV's Beth McDonnell has reaction.
Tens of thousands of Ontario public servants have known for months. Come Monday, it's reality. They're required to return to the office 5 days a week.
I think there's a lot of mayhem going on. I think lots of people are unhappy about returning. We're wondering what the traffic is going to be like.
That's an especially big concern in Toronto as the city continues to deal with a congestion crisis. The government workers will be joining thousands of other employees at banks, telecom and tech companies who've also been called back from remote work. But some are saying there should be compromise and flexibility.
I would really hope that they will do the productivity and efficiency studies, because it may not be necessary to bring everyone back to the office 5 days a week. 4 days is sufficient for morale, for camaraderie, for leadership issues. I just don't think that we necessarily have to come back 5 days a week for certain positions.
Others point to a sharp drop in daytime foot traffic among retailers and restaurants in the downtown core, which still haven't rebounded.
But from the government's perspective, they're taking kind of a holistic approach to say, no, we got to come back to work. And ultimately, you know, with one eye on the economy and one eye on some of the other issues that, they find that, they believe that employees are more productive in the office.
The Toronto Region Board of Trade says on peak days, downtown offices already have over 80% occupancy. It says while employers have different needs, it's seeing an uptick in demand for space, with this latest shift happening at a time when Toronto must consider its position across the continent.
We're competing, not just with other Canadian cities, but with other employers across the continent to attract businesses, to make sure that we're an attractive place to work and to do business. And a lot of our peer cities across North America have also seen a trend towards return to office.
Some employment experts say there are ways to make employees feel better about returning to the office full-time, such as prizes or productivity incentives. Beth McDonnell, CTV News.
A new poll shows nearly half of Ontarians think the Ford government's plan to put a tunnel under the 401 is unrealistic. 48% of the 1,000 people polled by Liaison Strategies also described the proposal as risky and wasteful, compared to 18% who see it as a bold nation-building project. 75% are concerned about safety and construction risks after they were told about reported internal risks like roadway collapse. 47% believe the tunnel will do nothing or little to actually reduce traffic congestion. Pollsters also asked people who they would vote for if a provincial election were held today. 44% of decided and leaning voters said they would vote for Ford's Progressive Conservatives. 35% would vote for the Ontario Liberals. The poll shows the PCs leading in Eastern Ontario and Southwestern Ontario, while the Liberals are ahead in the 416, 905 and in the North. The poll was conducted over the first weekend of December. More news in a moment, but first a live look outside on this frigid Friday. It has been quite the cold start to 2026, but we will climb back up to the plus side in the days ahead. Jessica Smith is here with a look at the current conditions. Jess.
That's right, Natalie. It has been chilly as we kind of wrapped up 2025 and stepped into 2026, and we're only on day 2. It is cold and it stays a little fresh throughout the weekend, but the good news is we head in towards the middle and end of next week, and as Natalie mentioned, we get on the positive side of the temperature scale. Still seeing, though, lake effect snow for now on those eastern shorelines of Lake Huron and Georgian Bay. No real change there. For the GTA, a few light flurries on and off throughout the day, but nothing all that intense. Still looking at snow squall watches and warnings again through Goderich, Barrie, and now stretching in towards areas just north of the GTA, but for the most part, the downtown core staying relatively dry. Temperature-wise, we're cool. We're at -7 in Windsor, -8 in Hamilton, -13 in Ottawa, and we're looking at a fairly cool night ahead of us, although not too far off that seasonal point. Right now through the islands and Pearson, between -5, -6 tonight, almost right on par for where we should be, but you factor in that wind chill, and it's a little cool out there, feeling like -13, but that wind becomes significantly lighter overnight, making it just a little easier to bear. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your long-range forecast, as you can expect a little more active weather on the way for the city heading into parts of our weekend, but all those details coming up in a moment. Right now, it's back to Natalie.
Okay, thank you, Jess.
Thanks.
We turn now to the tragic fire at a ski resort in Switzerland. Investigators believe sparkling candles atop champagne bottles came too close to the ceiling, igniting the blaze. 40 people were killed and 119 others were injured. The flames erupted in the early morning hours of Thursday during a New Year's celebration. Authorities plan to examine whether sound dampening material on the ceiling of the bar conformed with regulations and whether the candles were permitted for use there. Safety measures on the premises will also be investigated, including fire extinguishers and escape routes. Criminal charges could be possible. Canada's Prime Minister will visit France early next week to join talks with Ukraine's European allies. Mark Carney will be in Paris Monday and Tuesday for a gathering of the so-called Coalition of the Willing. The group is looking to advance a peace deal. The Prime Minister's office says Carney's focus remains on fortifying Ukraine, supporting its long-term recovery, and deterring future Russian aggression. Meantime, the Canadian government is condemning Chinese military drills off the coast of Taiwan. Beijing conducted 2 days of exercises this week. Global Affairs says Canada opposes any unilateral attempts to change the status quo across the Taiwan Strait and insists the waterway is indispensable to the security and prosperity of the international community. Canada is on track to accept fewer new residents, international students, and temporary workers in 2026. That means those who can fill critical labor gaps and high-demand jobs may have the upper hand. CTV's Rachel Aiello explains.
For many wanting to call Canada home, the latest immigration levels plan has injected uncertainty into the year ahead. For example, the federal government is cutting the number of international students it'll accept this year in half. A reduction this PhD candidate, who came to Canada from Iran in 2021 to do cancer research, says while necessary, has left many prospective students in limbo.
They don't feel welcomed here. They were invited to come here. They were accepted to come here. And now they're just caught in this perfect storm.
Canada will also be accepting fewer temporary workers this year.
They're more focused on labor shortages now.
Overall, the government plans to admit 380,000 permanent residents in 2026, down from the target of 395,000 admissions in 2025.
There's always winners and losers. The winners are going to be the Canadians, particularly the young Canadians, looking for that entry-level job that has been occupied by a foreign national. The losers are going to be the foreign nationals who came here with false promises of permanent residence.
While it may be shaping up to be a challenging year for the thousands with temporary status who can't stay, Canada is offering express entry for prospective newcomers who speak French or have skills in key sectors, such as trades, agriculture, engineering, education, and healthcare.
Instead of a broad, open arms approach to immigration, it's more selective now. It's more focused on ensuring that the economy can absorb their permanent residents and the workers coming in.
Linked to the shift towards prioritizing economic immigrants is a plan to spend more than $1 billion on a new international talent attraction strategy to incentivize leading researchers and innovators to come to Canada. Rachel Aiello, CTV News, Ottawa.
Well, the holidays are now winding down, but it remains to be seen what impact the festive season may have had on the spread of the flu. Public Health Ontario has temporarily paused its virus surveillance reports, citing limited data availability. But those regular updates are scheduled to resume as of next week. The most recent numbers for the week ending December 13th show influenza positivity rates were considered very high. They were nearly 34% and around double that figure among Ontarians ages 5 to 19, with nearly 1,000 flu patients hospitalized. Infectious disease experts have advised staying up to date on vaccines and avoiding gatherings if sick. A Toronto man is sharing his story as he recovers from anxiety and addiction. Matthew Nealon grew up at a time when mental health supports were not easily available to him, but now a new partnership between the Centre for Addiction and Mental Health and Sick Kids Hospital is working to ensure that every child gets the care they need.
The only thing I knew how to do was literally shut down. And the way to shut down was to survive.
Born in 1986 with a cleft lip and palate, the hospital became a second home to Matthew Nealon as he underwent dozens of surgeries as a child.
As I was growing up, I started to recognize that I didn't like these operations that we're going through. And I knew at the time I was different.
His parents by his side for every appointment and operation, but still he says he felt alone. Unable to process the emotional trauma of the physical surgeries, severe anxiety overtook his life.
I would just projectile vomit. My body would collapse. I wouldn't be able to move. I wouldn't be able to speak. And I would just be in such intense fear and terror that I didn't know what else to do.
As an adult, turning to alcohol to help him cope with panic attacks, anxiety for which decades ago there was little support.
Because there was no knowledge, the fear was just skyrocketing. It honestly felt like I was going to die every single time.
Fast forward nearly 40 years, and there is a world of new understanding of the need for mental health support for children and youth. CAMH teaming up with Sick Kids to launch Thriving Minds, an initiative to ensure coordinated and connected care.
Children and youth trying to access the mental health system really experience a very fragmented system of care. There are multiple front doors, multiple waiting lists, and sometimes they wait for a long time and then find that they can't even access the type of care that they need.
Referring young people to specialized mental health programs and supports like Youth Wellness Hubs Ontario.
If we can get in there early, we can ensure that youth and their families have the best outcomes possible when it comes to mental health. We can help them develop skills and tools to manage some of the things they're struggling with, get them connected to the right primary care providers.
Very often, by the time children and youth are seeking mental health care with us, they may already be having an episode of of ill health and for which they need care. So what we're doing is really preventing that from getting any worse, which frequently can happen when people sit on wait lists for a long time.
Expanded access to mental health care that Matthew Nealon wishes he had had so many years ago.
I'm now mentally capable of handling all that anxiety and stress and terror and fear that happened back as a kid.
Sharing his own story of anxiety and addiction recovery in a memoir to encourage young people in need of support to connect with care. Still to come this hour, pacifying parent concerns. Our Pat Vaughan investigates Soothers safety for babies in tonight's Consumer Alert. Just ahead.
And we're only 2 days in, but it's been a chilly start to 2026. But the good news is we will trend upwards and above seasonal as we head in towards next week, if you're not a fan of the cold. But if you are and you want to spend some time outside, if you're hitting up Earl Bales tomorrow to go skiing or snowboarding, not too bad. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your long-range forecast, including some snow on the way for your Saturday and the temperatures on the rise next week. Those details in just a minute.
When you see it happen, send it to CTV News. Text 10400 from your screen to ours. Text 10400.
Well, if you've ever tried to soothe a baby to sleep, a pacifier may have helped do the trick. But are they all safe? Experts say there are some types of soothers on the market you should steer clear of. CTV's Pat Vaughan explains in Consumer Alert.
Pacifiers are a staple for new parents, soothing babies through tears, sleep, and even doctor visits. They can also help reduce the risk of sudden infant death syndrome, or SIDS, according to the American Academy of Pediatrics. But how safe are they? Since 2014, the Consumer Product Safety Commission received 178 reports involving pacifiers, including 1 death and cases of choking, biting off pieces, and getting fingers stuck in small holes. Consumer Reports tested 20 pacifiers for choking hazards, harmful chemicals, and durability. Most performed well, but a few raised red flags for risky attachments or confusing labels.
Unsafe pacifiers do make it into the marketplace.
Testers found questionable pacifiers online, from glittery, blinged-out models with rhinestones, which could be a potential safety risk, to second-hand or vintage ones that don't meet safety standards.
That's why it gets tricky when shopping online, especially through third-party sellers. Some of those products may not have gone through proper safety testing.
When shopping on sites like Amazon, Walmart, or Temu that allow third-party sellers, it's recommended to go with trusted brands and to check that listings confirm safety testing. But it's not just an issue online. Researchers found a pacifier at a local store missing the required safety warning. A reminder to be careful whenever you shop for baby products. Pat Vaughan, CTV News.
Well, we are off to a cold start for 2026. And on Monday, just as everybody gets set to go back to the office, we are going to see some snow.
We are. So this is your early heads up. If you're back to school, back to work, you're just kind of returning to that more normal schedule. We are looking at not a major snow event, but it's going to be consistent snow all day. So keep that in mind. It is going to impact your travel and your commute to work, to school, and to your daily activities. So just give yourself that extra time and pack your patience, as the saying goes. But for today, it was clear and it was cool out there for the most part. The GTA staying mostly out of the woods when it comes to that lake effect snow. But we did see a few light flurries on and off throughout the day. But I'm telling you, sunshine, it makes a difference. It really does. We had that in spades throughout our Friday. Cool, though, as we made our way through the afternoon, and we're holding on to a slightly below seasonal trend just throughout the weekend before we start to kind of ricochet in the opposite direction with your temperatures. Right now, though, we're sitting at -6, feeling like -13. Not nearly as cool as our friends through Ottawa, North Bay, and North. They still have those wind chills north of North Bay in that -20 range, so it is chilly. The bulk of the flurry activity today really again along those eastern shorelines of Lake Huron and Georgian Bay, impacting Goderich, Owen Sound, Orillia, Perry Sound, and that's going to continue as we head throughout the overnight and into the day tomorrow. But your Saturday kicks off with a little bit of sunshine to start the very early morning hours before the cloud cover rolls in. We'll see a daytime high pretty close to seasonal here in the city, and that's the same almost right across the board. As we head into, the rest of our evening, we are going to continue to be impacted by snow squall watches and warnings. In those standard communities, they've already seen a ton of snow, so just take care if you're kind of wrapping up your weekend, your holiday time with traveling, especially to those areas. It is going to be a bit of a challenge as we continue to see that trough push through that dotted line, bringing that lake effect snow continually along those shorelines. As we head in towards the weekend, though, we are watching another low. Nothing super intense, but it is going to move through the afternoon and evening, and that could impact your day. Unless you want to be out on a ski hill, then you're doing just fine, right? As we head throughout the rest of our evening, we see a few light clouds. We kick off our Saturday. Again, a little sunshine to start the early morning hours, and then by about 9 a.m., the cloud cover rolls in, and still seeing that impact from lake effect snow. More so, again, for our friends through Goderich, Owen Sound, Perry Sound, Orillia. We see that kind of stretch towards us here in the GTA mid to late afternoon, and it carries on and off throughout the early part of our evening before moving out entirely. Sunday will be nice. It'll be cool. A great way to kind of wrap up what has been a pretty busy holiday season, I'm sure, for many. But as we head into Monday, just in time for the commute, the drop-off for school, the drop-off for daycare, for a lot of people, we are watching for that low to push its way in. It is going to slow down your travel, really, no matter where you are, whether it's transit, bus, car, on foot. So just take care, give yourself time if you can. And this carries us right through to the lunch hour and then into the early part of our evening. So pretty much an all-day affair. Again, through your Saturday, your Sunday, not terrible. It's as we get in towards Monday, again, that impact for that commute for a lot of folks heading back to the office, it is going to slow down at least the start of your day. And then we dry up through your Tuesday and onwards, and then we're into the positive temperatures. So hopefully some positive news as we step into 2026. Hopefully this helps you plan. Natalie, I'll send things back to you.
Okay, thank you, Jess.
Thanks.
Well, if you've ever wanted to work at the Toronto Zoo, this could be your year. This was the scene earlier today at the Zoo's annual job fair. Attendees were able to get the inside scoop on everything from volunteer and seasonal roles to longer-term career paths. More than 200 positions are on offer across 22 different roles.
We're looking for those folks who are truly passionate about our mission, connecting people, animals, conservation science, and traditional knowledge to fight extinction, and folks who have unique skill sets and perspectives that they'll really be able to add value to our pursuit of that. So it depends the role, and what's amazing is there's something for everyone here, and we hope that this can be part of their career journey.
Fair attendees also got free admission to the zoo for themselves and a guest. The zoo has its full list of career opportunities on its website. Well, it is a big night for hockey fans across the country. Canada plays its first elimination game at the World Junior Championship in Minneapolis.
Down to Reshnik. Back for Perek to Hage. Hage centers it, Rippinen makes the save, rebound, score!
The Canadians went undefeated in 4 round-robin games to finish atop Group B. In this evening's quarterfinal, they take on Slovakia, who ended up 4th in Group A. Canada will look to avoid the same fate as the last 2 years, losing in the quarters. Puck drop is shortly after 8:30. Meanwhile, 3 Toronto Maple Leafs will represent their countries at next month's Winter Olympics. Austin Matthews was one of 25 players named by Team USA today. He is joined by fellow Leaf William Nylander, who has been picked for Sweden's Olympic team. The forward has played for that country 9 times at various tournaments. And Leafs defenseman Oliver Ekman-Larsson will also suit up for the Swedes in Milan. He helped Sweden win a silver medal at the 2014 Sochi Games. Still to come tonight, the Ontario legislature doesn't return until March, but provincial politics will be back in play well before that. We head to 2026 at Queen's Park, just ahead. As Doug Ford's PC government moves into the next year of its 3rd straight majority, there is much more on the agenda at Queen's Park in 2026. We have the details on what to watch for the legislature in the year ahead.
I'm John Moore from News Talk 1010. We're taking a look now at the year ahead at Queen's Park, and who better to walk us through that than Deb Hutton, former advisor to 2 Ontario premiers, also the show host from 2 to 4 p.m. at News Talk 1010, and Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris is here as well. Let's talk briefly about the Skills Development Fund, because I'm curious about where you see this going in the year to come. And Siobhan, I know that the opposition is insisting there's should be an inquiry. But, you know, we don't live in an era these days where it seems governments at any level call inquiries anymore.
No, and I don't expect that that's going to happen. What we could see happen in the next few months is the Integrity Commissioner dig into some of the complaints that have been filed by both the Liberals and the NDP around the distribution of the money and some connections they believe the minister has to some of the recipients. So that would be, I think, the closest thing to getting more answers we might see. There is a police investigation now into one of the recipients of a different part of government funding that does have some overlap with the Skills Development Fund. So, but I don't expect, you know, police move slowly. They move in the quiet, in the dark. So we won't see anything on that front for quite a while. So I think it also remains to be seen how big the snowball continues to get while the House is out of session until March.
Worth noting, though, Deb, there are some delicious aspects to this scandal. When you get down to a strip club, which is located in the horticulture building at the fairgrounds, people start to take notice. But again, I find that this particular scandal, if we're going to call it that, keeps failing to get enough traction to really get people concerned.
Right, because there's a ton of facts, but none that really line up together. And that's the challenge for the opposition. Now, if that changes, I think, the nature of the entire issue itself. Siobhan's right, there could be some Integrity Commissioner look-aheads, and that sometimes gives you some advice to government as to how you can clean things up. There still is more to give out on this fund, actually. It's a massive fund. I don't know, is it $2.5 billion or something? So they will have to make sure that going forward, as these grants are given out, that there's a little more rigor around the process. But to date, unless there is that smoking gun, to use a cliche, I think, especially with the rise of the House until March, I think it goes away for a little while and maybe forever.
Okay, well, and as a sidebar, Siobhan, can we talk about the break that the House is on? Because that can be very, very advantageous. But a lot of people look at that and the long summer break and think, okay, when are you guys going to work?
Yeah, I mean, Deb will know that MPPs are working during that time. They have a lot of meetings. They're interfacing with their constituents, finding out what's important to them. But when you stack those two breaks together in this calendar year and a little bit more, I think people are frustrated knowing how little time they're seeing their MPPs in a very visible way making discussions, and it's also impacting the way that legislation is being crafted and ultimately passed. We've seen a couple times through this fall session that MPPs are actually having to add new things into legislation for a bill they already passed because they forgot some element or weren't specific enough. And so I think that's what you hear from the opposition, that's the sort of thing that happens when things are rushed.
Deb, do you see them possibly declaring a new session or just coming back and picking up where they left off?
I don't think so. I mean, they've only really had a session and a half of sorts, and throne speeches take time to do, and that's what you have to do if you're coming back with a new session. So no, I think they'll come back, and their cornerstone of the spring will be their budget. And we'll see what it looks like. Premier continues to talk about tax cuts, which I'm all for. We'll see where he goes on spending. And I mean, listen, we're still going to be talking tariffs in 2026, and there'll still be more to do. Our auto sector has continued to take quite a hit, and his EV battery plans have taken a bit of a hit, just given where we are with EV sales. So, I mean, there is a lot that will be in that budget and a lot of important stuff, even if it doesn't happen in question period.
The education minister has been quite categorical in his conduct and his words, actually. And Siobhan, it's possible in the coming year the province may actually move toward not disbanding school boards, but I mean amalgamating, getting rid of trustees. They already have, I think we're up to 6 that are in trusteeship, effectively being run by the province. I actually have people who are telling me that the government is going to make this initiative. They're just in the process of lawyering it to make sure it's charter compliant.
It's hard to see any other path forward other than getting rid of trustees, based on how Minister Paul Calandra has been speaking for a few months now. And he said he's not convinced that trustees are the greatest way to deliver a multi-billion-dollar education system. He has ruled out the idea of eliminating school boards, merging school boards. I think that had been a possibility maybe in the later part of the summer, but we do expect that this will be a pretty big change in terms of how governance at school boards works, and they do want to make sure that any changes that they do are constitutionally okay, because the requirements for Catholic education and French education have to be respected, and they don't want to end up in the courts on this one.
Let's talk about some of the personalities. Bonnie Crombie, of course, will eventually exit stage left, and then the Liberals have to pick somebody new. What do you see?
Well, nothing is the problem. I mean, I think that's their challenge. We don't have a date. We don't have a process. And so not unusual that people won't declare overtly that they're in until they know what the rules are, how much it costs to get in, how many signatures, all those sort of process type things. But I don't even see anyone really that if I were a Liberal, I'd say I really need to make sure this person is running to replace Bonnie. I mean, John Fraser's been their interim leader. He's a good stalwart. He's not going to be running. Nate Erskine-Smith is someone we hear about a lot because he puts his hand up and his head up in, quite frankly, not the smartest of ways, so I'm not sure that's a viable option for them. You know, there's some good MPPs I know that you talk to regularly on your show, Dr. Shamji, for example, but I don't sense that they are, in fact, we've heard the opposite, that they're going to run. It is reminiscent of when the Conservatives way back in the 90s were in third place, and we had more announcements of people not running. They would put out a press release and say they're not running, whether anyone thought they were or not, than we did for people running. We ended up with a two-candidate race, and it was some lean years, without a doubt.
Siobhan, are you getting any scuttlebutt at Queen's Park? Is it a restive caucus?
I think you're seeing some people not willing to answer right now. Yeah. I'm thinking about it. I'm talking to my constituents about whether I should run or not. But you do have the difficult position is the caucus are people who have seen what Doug Ford and his PC party are capable of, and that's a tall hill to climb, knowing what they did to Bonnie Crombie, what they did to Stephen Del Duca, again, with those relentless ads. And so you have to know that that's what you're signing up for, digging your party out from third place, hopefully to government if you're a Liberal, of course, and knowing that you have a really tough task ahead of you and needing to find a weak spot in the PC government that might not be obvious at this point.
Okay, Doug Ford. I don't think 2026 is the year that he quits, but he's got to start clearing his throat on the next chapter because, I mean, if he were to run for a fourth term, Deb, I think there's only one other Ontario Premier who pulled that off.
But Premier Doug Ford has surprised people at every single turn. So that's not something I'd put money on. I mean, if I were him personally, it is a draining job. You see it, and to do it for a dozen years is phenomenal, and particularly because he's had some challenges, whether you want to talk about COVID or you want to talk about the tariffs. I mean, this has not been an easy decade. And so, you know, any other person, I would say, we'll probably start to hear by 2027 they're gone. I will not put money on that for Premier Doug Ford.
It caught us by surprise when Dalton McGuinty quit, but they'd have to engineer something like that with the provincial Conservatives, Siobhan, where there has to be an exit date perhaps set or a signal sent, and then all of the people who've been in caucus and cabinet probably who want to run have to start marshalling their forces.
Yeah, you don't want to leave your party open to being to losing and having another party take over the government of the province. Deb's right. You know, the premier has faced a really tough go. I think COVID really interrupted some of what he had hoped to accomplish in the province. I think he also had a rough first 2 years where he came into government, realized that a lot of what he wanted to do, he was going to get a lot of pushback on. I think of the cut to the size of city council. Of course, he was successful in the end, but there was a lot more resistance in those early years and a really frenetic pace sitting through the summer, and that wears on a government, it wears on a premier, it wears on all the people around him, and so that's something to consider about when you think about what's next for him.
Thank you both. Good to have you. That's Deb Hutton and Siobhan Morris on the year to come at Queen's Park. Any way you shake it out, it's great stuff for wonks like us.
And since the recording of this panel, the Integrity Commissioner has launched an investigation into Labour Minister David Piccini's involvement with the Skills Development Fund to determine whether any parliamentary rules were violated. Coming up 2 days into 2026, and some Canadian CEOs have already earned what the average worker will make this year. The growing gap in compensation just ahead in business. In business, a Canadian uranium mining company was one of the biggest gainers on the TSX today. For more on the reason behind the bump, here's BNN Bloomberg's Lindsay Biscaya with your business report.
Denison Mines shares gained more than 14% today, the biggest intraday gain since October. The reason? The uranium exploration company has reported it is ready to begin the construction of its flagship Phoenix uranium mine. The company has confirmed an expected 2-year construction timeline. Regulatory approvals are in the process and production could begin by mid-2028. Denison warns, however, total costs for the project are now estimated to be 20% higher at more than $500 million. And here are the closing numbers for the day. The Canadian dollar is down to $72.84. West Texas Intermediate is down to $57.29. Western Canadian Select also ended the day lower at $43.83. And the TSX gained 170 points today, closing at 31,883. And those are your business headlines. I'm Lindsay Biscaya.
The Business Report is brought to you by Canadian Western Bank, the bank built for business.
Well, the area around Yonge and Eglinton has undergone some major changes in recent years. And here's another one. Chinese buffet chain Mandarin says it will be permanently closing its Midtown restaurant later this month. It first opens its doors in 1991. A message from management says the lease is expiring as redevelopment takes place, and January 18th will be the location's final day. Well, we are getting a new glimpse of how much money Canada's highest paid CEOs are taking home. The record year for the top 100 highlights the growing income gap between executives and the average worker. CTV's Kamal Karamali reports.
Here at Canada's busiest mall, new items stocked for the new year, but affording them.
Are you able to afford shopping?
No. Is a different story.
The cost of living, yeah, it's become really hard.
Especially for the many here making minimum wage.
I feel bad because I can't buy expensive things for my friends and family.
Elizabeth and Jillian work as servers. The holidays may have left them high in spirit, but low on cash.
It's crazy that there's billionaires and millionaires while people can't even afford to eat.
Now a new report shows Canada's top CEOs make in the first day and a half of the new year what the average worker makes in an entire year.
Yeah, CEOs have always been paid more than the average worker, but it's the gap that has really grown substantially.
The average Canadian worker made just over $65,000 in 2024. Compare that to the average pay for Canada's top 100 CEOs at more than $16 million, which is a new record. That's 248 times the salary of the average Canadian. And that pay gap has been climbing for years. CEOs were paid 50 times more than the average Canadian worker in the 1980s. That increased to about 100 times in the 90s and to 150 in the 2000s, now hitting a new high.
When companies do well, the CEO sees huge expansion in their bonuses, and companies have been doing very well since the pandemic.
The head of Shopify topping the list with a new record at over $200 million, more than doubling the second highest paid CEO in Canada.
It's easier for CEOs to raise their own pay and not affect the profitability of the company than it is to raise worker pay, which has a much bigger impact on the profitability.
The report suggests implementing a millionaire's or wealth tax. The report also confirming what many have already reported, the costs of goods and services in Canada, like groceries, increasing at a much faster rate than workers' wages. Kamal Karamali, CTV News, Toronto.
As Drake appeals the dismissal of his defamation lawsuit against his own label, he could be facing a different legal hurdle in 2026. The Toronto rapper has been named as part of a proposed class action suit south of the border. The plaintiffs outlined a number of allegations regarding online casino operator Stake. The lawsuit claims Drake and other individuals were paid to promote the platform by gambling with virtual currencies. It also claims Stake was used to hide money transfers, including funds used to artificially inflate streams of Drake's music. None of the allegations has been proven in court, and representatives for Drake and Stake haven't commented. Disney Plus is out with a somewhat tongue-in-cheek preview for the return of the Muppet Show.
Back on the very stage where it all started and then ended and is maybe starting again depending on how tonight goes.
Kermit, Miss Piggy, and many more iconic Jim Henson characters are back for a one-off special event on February 4th. It will also feature appearances from executive producers Sabrina Carpenter and Seth Rogen. It's expected the Muppet Show special could set the stage for a broader relaunch of the series. Still to come tonight, seeing snow for the first time in her 60s. One woman's winter wonderland experience warms the hearts of millions in a viral video. That story after the break. A 63-year-old woman from Jamaica got her first glimpse of snow over the holidays, and now millions of others have shared in her moment. Her delight in experiencing a winter wonderland for the first time was all caught on camera and is now going viral.
It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas.
This is Rose Peters, who ventured outside to have some winter fun after opening the door to see the fluffy white snowflakes falling from the sky. She traveled from Jamaica to Connecticut to visit her daughter for Christmas. And as you can see, she even gets excited about clearing snow off of a car and shoveling the sidewalk before jumping into the snow to do her very first snow angel.
That's so cute.
Isn't that great?
Honestly, it is a really special experience, and I think sometimes I take for granted when we have those big, beautiful snows, but different too when you're having to get ready to commute in it, which is what a lot of folks are gonna have to do Monday. But for her, what a cool experience.
Just remember Rose when you're upset about wiping off your car on Monday
Rose.
morning.
Remember, do it for Rose. We are looking at lake effect snow off of those eastern shorelines of Lake Huron and Georgian Bay. No surprise there, the lake effect snow machine still going strong. As we head in towards this early part of our evening, -6 here in the city, feeling like -13. And we're kind of hovering right around that -6 to -8 mark, right around the Golden Horseshoe. We get into the weekend, it's a little chilly. That snow expected kind of midday on your Saturday, Sunday, lots of sunshine, but it's cold. And Monday, you're heading back to work, to school, maybe back to the office. Be prepared for a bit of a slower commute from start to finish. So just take your time and drive safe.
Okay, that is our newscast for now. Be sure to join Heather Butts tonight at 11 for CTV National News, followed by Zoraida Allman with our next local newscast at 11:30. In the meantime, our coverage continues anytime on CB24 and online at ctvnewstoronto.ca. For Jessica Smith and all of us here at CTV News, thank you for watching and have a good night.